Girl, that's your first mistake. That's your first mistake, babe. You gotta run. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I was running down the street so I could barely hear you. She cried. I just got chills. I just got literal chills. What the heck? Hello, everyone. Welcome back to my channel, guys. Today, we're going to be doing another Reddit video. I feel like it's been a while since I've done this. Maybe it hasn't, but to me, it feels like it. So I'm excited. We're also going to be diving into a new thread that I've been dying to get into, which is the Let's Not Meet thread. I thought that the Am I the A-hole thread was the most popular, but I feel like the Let's Not Meet thread is like 10 times more popular. So I'm excited. We're finally gonna get into it. So let's get into it. Also, if you see me checking the viewfinder a lot, it's because I'm using natural light and I might get like overexposed because the lighting changes because of the clouds and the sun. So if you see that, just ignore me. I feel like the lighting changed just then already. Just ignore me. All right, this first one really intrigued me because I live in Florida and the title is Florida Woman Crawled Out of My Hotel Mirror to Rob Me. No, it wasn't me. Or was it? I'm just kidding. Let's get into it. Okay, so it says, this past Monday, my coworkers and I returned to our hotel from a day of work out in the field. Rebecca and I walked to our rooms, and as we stood outside our rooms, I opened mine and I saw someone in the bathroom. I said, hello? Nobody answered. Girl, that's your first mistake. That's your first mistake, babe. You gotta run. My first instinct was that it was a cleaning lady in there for some reason. And then I saw my bag with my clothes in her hands. I said to my coworker, there's a woman in my room. Then I asked the woman, what are you doing with my stuff? It gets a little fuzzy here because I can't remember everything I said and what she said, but she kept mumbling about how her key still worked. How it still worked and that's how she got in. I was in shock and she was obviously very flustered having been caught mid-robbery. She dropped my bags and fumbled around with her purse and a white plastic bag. Ugh, I would have been gone. By this time, my coworker was behind me watching all the insanity unfold. This woman was scrambling and walking towards the door and I said, what's in the bag? Girl, you are too curious for your own good, babe. Thinking it was probably my stuff. And so she said, no, it's just my things. It's just my things. I'll show you. And so she did. I looked and I didn't see anything of mine. And so since I'm obviously in shock at this time, I let her leave. I went into my room and it's been ransacked. I did a quick look around to see if anything had been taken. All of my electronics were still there. Then I went into the bathroom and I saw my underwear, my bikini, and my clothes shoved into my own bags randomly. Even my passport was shoved in there. Then I looked on the counter and I saw that she got into my medication. I'm not sure what was going through my head at that moment other than I wanted it back, so I ran out the door to go find her. I ran to the laundry room, downstairs, and out to the sides of the hotel, and I didn't see her. I realized I was never going to find her, so my coworker and I went down to the lobby to tell them what happened, and then we called the police. We went back to my room to wait, and I noticed that there is a metal bat on my bed, a little larger than one of those novelty wooden bats that you can get at the baseball game. But there's also a flashlight on the end. She must have left it behind in her hurry. She also left behind a necklace that must have fallen out of her bag when she was scrambling with mine. I was mostly freaking out at this point because I thought she'd gotten away with my medication that I need. The police got there and took our statements and looked around the room as well. One thing that I noticed was that there were bits of drywall in the sink, and I pointed that out to the cops, but none of us really knew where it came from. We started looking out the door and the windows to see if she pried her way in somehow, but there was nothing. So we kind of just went with the idea that she had a spare key or something, even though the hotel front desk was adamant that there's no way that could be. The officer that came brought 2 more officers as backup because they thought the woman might still be in the vicinity. But after our statements were taken, there was nothing else they could really do, so they left. I sat down to finally make some calls to tell people, and as I'm on the phone, I'm thinking about the drywall in the sink, and it still didn't make sense to me. So I'm on the phone looking at the drywall and the mirror on the wall right above it, and then it hit me. I got my coworker and asked her to help me pull at this mirror on the wall, and we took the mirror down, and there's a hole there just big enough for a desperate junkie to squeeze through. I asked Brian and Rebecca if I should call the cops again and let them know that I found this, and my boss said there's still 2 cop cars in the parking lot. So I went down to tell them, and the female cop kind of rolled her eyes, but the young guy said, I'll come check it out. They both came back up, looked in the hole, and found a pillow, blankets, cigarettes, clothes, and toothbrushes. Homegirl was living. Oh my god, I'm gonna go pull my mirror off in my bathroom right now because that absolutely terrified me. This woman had been living in the wall behind my mirror for God knows how long. She had access to me and my room all this time. I know it might be hard to picture, but there was a crawl space about 2 feet wide in between the 2 rows of rooms. One of the officers called the original officer to come back and take pictures of this. She explained to him what's going on, and all I heard over the radio is no effing way. He comes back, takes pictures, and is just as mind blown as the rest of us. Obviously, we packed up and left immediately. What's even crazier is she probably has been there for a long time. The last time we stayed at this hotel, I would randomly smell cigarettes, smoke, and I assumed someone was smoking in their bathroom and it was traveling through the vents. But nope, a junkie was smoking just on the other side of my mirror. She had access to other rooms too. The hole in the walls were from a renovation and the hotel hadn't properly patched and just covered up the mirrors. She could have been hanging out in people's rooms when they were gone. And then she uploaded a photo of the hole. I gotta see this. Oh my gosh, you guys, that is so freaking, look at this. I'm never staying in a hotel ever again. So I can't stay in Airbnbs now. And I also can't, like, where can I stay? Let's just move on to the next one because I actually am not sleeping tonight. Okay, the next one says, I, a pizza guy, intercepted a kidnapping during a delivery. I have no idea exactly how this would go, but I'm intrigued. So let's get into it. I deliver pizza and I'd been having a really busy night. Non-stop back and forth without any time to even pause and take a leak. It'd been so busy that I wasn't really thinking about bathroom breaks. But we're also going through a bit of heat wave in our area, so I've been drinking copious amounts of water. All of a sudden, as I was driving to this particular delivery, the urge to go hit me. Like things went from 0 to 60 in an instant. Thankfully, I was close to the customer, so we can get this one over with quickly, or so I thought. I pull up to the house and it was an area I delivered in before. So I could immediately see that something wasn't right. Like what? Like what? All the lights were off in the house, not even the glow of a television or anything. It was extra apparent because the street light closest to the door happened to be out of order. And on top of it all, the block was dead quiet. This is a big university area, and obviously there aren't many student renters in July, but there had to be at least one person because someone ordered this pizza. Maybe they just like sitting in the dark, or they were out back in the yard. Whatever, I just didn't want to go out of my car and knock on a quiet house in the middle of the night, around 9:30 p.m., without first checking that I had the correct address and the customer was inside. It was scorching that night, even after sundown. My car's AC is a joke, and the piping hot pizzas don't help things much. So I have to try and open the car door as infrequently as possible to keep any cool air in. I called the number the customer provided, and the voice on the other end said, kind of brusquely and out of breath, "Yeah?" I just tried to keep it clear and concise. "Hey, it's your pizza out front, but there doesn't appear to be anybody home." And the customer replied, still gasping for air, "Yeah, I'm not home." I had to pee so badly by that time that I was much less patient than I'd otherwise be with a customer right out of the gate. "Well, then we're going to have to terminate the order because I've arrived in the stated delivery window and you were supposed to pay in cash. So I don't know what to tell you. Plan ahead next time." I like him. I instantly regretted letting my bladder do the talking for me as the voice on the other end came through more clearly as a young, bubbly, and very distraught girl who couldn't have been older than 20 or 25. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I was running down the street so I could barely hear you. She cried. I just switched out of my AirPods. Is that better? Sorry, I completely lost track of time at work, but I knew you were coming. That's why I'm literally running home right now. Please don't leave. I'm starving and I don't have a car. Seriously, please don't leave. 5 more minutes tops, okay? Why am I so good at that? I know what it's like to be hungry and running late and have no car, but not live near any restaurants. Plus, when I heard her voice, I began to remember more specifically having delivered to this house a couple of times before, and she'd always been perfectly nice. Now I felt bad for snapping at her. I tried to walk it back while simultaneously looking out my window for potential spots to pee. No, my bad. I'm letting the heat get the best of me. It's not your fault. No need to rush. See you when you get here. I hung up, and while surveilling the street, was starting to think I was really out of luck. All the other houses had people in them, and were close together, so there were no clumps of trees or out-of-the-way patches of land or anything. And of course, I had just tossed my empty water bottle at the last delivery because I'm an idiot. Finally, I decided it was escalating to the point of an emergency, and the safest bet was to use a bush in front of the woman's house. She wasn't home. The street light was out, so no one would see me. The people who were home were inside. My car was parked across the street, and we're a small shop who don't wear uniforms. So if someone did spot me, they'd have no way to connect me to my employer. Animals pee outside all the time. You lost me. Animals pee outside all the time. Humans are animals. This is fine. The mental cartwheels that this guy has just put himself through honestly deserves an award. I scurried over to the tallest bush in her front yard. She didn't really have much of a yard, more just like a walkway lined with bushes and flowers that ran adjacent to her front door. The biggest cluster of bushes, the one where I could be sure there would be no visible splatter on the side of the house, was about 4 feet from her door. I looked both ways, unzipped, and let it fly. After the initial millisecond of relief, I noticed the sound was way off. More like pissing on something solid than something leafy. I started panicking, thinking I'd aimed wrong. But once I start, I can't stop midstream. So I kept squinting into the darkness to see if maybe I was hitting a key or rock or something that I could just move a few inches over. Instead, all of a sudden, I heard a way more concerning voice. A deep voice exclaiming, "What the f?" And before I could even turn around, assuming I'd been caught by a neighbor, a man came leaping out of the bushes. He blew by me, brushing my golden shower off of him as he did. He spit pretty empathetically on the ground, so I think I might have beamed him right in the face. I didn't see where he went after a few paces, but though this next part is kind of a blur, I do think I remember hearing a car screech out from a bit further away after a minute. I'd gotten some night vision by this point, so I was able to make out his height, build, and outfit, but only the most general details of each. I was in such shock that I didn't even put my peen away. I just stood there trying to figure out what had happened. The reality was so terrifying that my mind refused to accept it and impulsively searched for a reasonable explanation that could make everything okay. I thought, could these bushes lead to some backyard area that just looked like they were against the house? Could they have been obscuring an opening window? My inner voice was desperately screaming, bro, that man was wearing a hoodie in 90-degree weather. That was a bad man. You're in a bad situation. But the very idea that I was within inches of a guy who would be hiding in the bushes at all, let alone in front of a young woman's house at night, just wasn't something I was ready to grapple with yet. I was coping, but not coping. My fight or flight response totally failed me at that point because my dumbass did the absolute last thing I should have done and approached the bushes to try and validate this. It's always the curious ones. There must have been a good reason for a man in a hoodie to be behind these bushes in the middle of the night. Theory. So I walked over to the side, turned on my phone flashlight, and tried to peer around the line of shrubbery. Pro tip: as scary as things may look in the dark, seeing them with a single beam of your flashlight can sometimes make it even worse. That's when I saw the bag. There was a tattered drawstring bag sitting behind the bushes, slightly splashed with pee. But I was in such a moronic daze from the shock that I groped around for it thinking, see, this is it. This will explain why he was back here. And boy, did it explain it. Once I maneuvered it over and pulled it open, I saw a sharp knife, a roll of duct tape, and a bottle of pills. Oh my God, I just got chills. The delusions officially broke at that point, and all the adrenaline, endorphins, and self-preservation instincts that had been suppressed kicked in 10 times over. I became whatever the opposite of dazed is, more laser focused than I had ever been in my life, with one single goal: get back to my car. I dropped the bag, booked it across the street, got in my car, and slammed the pedal to the floor before the door was even all the way closed. I went as far as I could, as fast as I could, until I hit a red signal. Then I pulled off to the side and realized I shouldn't be driving any more than necessary in the condition I was in. I pulled into the parking lot of a 24-hour drugstore and took a breath. I was finally calm and coherent enough to zip up and formulate a plan of action. My first lucid thought was, who do I call first, the police or the girl whose house that was? I thought about it for what couldn't have really been more than 10 seconds, but felt like an hour, and decided, okay, I'm in my locked car with the engine running. If trouble starts, I can drive away. I know something's up. She might not. She needs to know not to keep walking in that direction. But as I was dialing her number, it occurred to me, what if there was no girl?
Wait a minute.
Wait. What? Like the kidnapping was for him? Like they were trying to kidnap him? Wait, what? I thought I remembered delivering to the house before, but what if I was wrong? What if the girl on the phone was just a decoy to get me there to rob me, or worse? Every pizza guy on the planet has seen the Evil Genius documentary by now. So I thought, she called me all out of breath, she wasn't home, the whole thing was off. Can't risk it. I'll start with the cops. I called 911. The operator was very helpful in keeping me calm because I was a complete wreck at this point. He kept assuring me that someone would be there soon, okay? I kept telling them they had to get there before the girl did, but I was trying to express 3 thoughts at once and really damaging my own credibility. It came out more as, you've got to save this girl because he wasn't after me, I was just delivering a pizza. Unless they were after me, in which case there might not be a girl. But I talked to one on the phone, so then you should find the girl because they used her to lure me there. But if she's real, she doesn't really know about the guy, who was also real. But there could be more guys. What if there's actually a girl? And you know what? Even if there isn't a girl, there might actually be more guys. I only checked one part of the bushes, so I don't really know. But we'll know which guy was the one I saw because I pissed all over him, you know? I didn't mean to. This was back when I thought the girl was real, but not home. But she might not be real, so you really need to find her if she is, because the guy was real. He's like trying to think out his thought process, but like talking it out. Finally, they basically just asked me to stop talking and stay on the line. But that was when I saw an incoming call from the customer. I couldn't answer it without disturbing my 911 call, so I just ignored it. But then she sent me this text like, hey, I'm here, don't see you. I told 911 she was there, and they said officers were only minutes away. But who knows how long that meant, especially after I'd given such a scattered account of events in my panic. I just felt overwhelmed with guilt, because my rational mind said the odds of her being a decoy girl for some large scam targeting pizza guys were low, and the odds of her being the intended victim of a predator were high. So I put my 911 call on mute, where I can hear them but they can't hear me, and turned back. My heart absolutely pounded out of my chest. Then I took 911 off mute and told them I had returned to look for the girl. They weren't happy about that, but I saw her meandering past the parked cars in the street looking to see if one was mine, and I waved her down, flashing my brights. She bounced on over to the window of my car, happy-go-lucky. I figured that was a good sign that she wasn't in on whatever this was. But I was just so scared to be back in the general area and to not know what had just happened or what was going to happen. I kept whispering, get in, get in, get in. And she was like, get in? Huh? You want me to get the pizza from the back? I didn't want to make the same mistake with her that I had made for 911. So instead of trying to tell her the whole story, I stuck to the bare basic facts. There was a man in your bushes. I'm on the phone with the police. I don't know where he is right now. Please get in the car so we can lock the doors. I was barely able to get even those sentences out, and I was shaking like I'd had 10 cups of black coffee. I held up my phone with 911 on the screen to verify it for her. I thought that was why she got in the car with no further explanation, but it turns out that wasn't entirely it. You still there? Is she with you? Are you safe? Is anyone else there? 911 kept checking in, not knowing who the third party I was talking to was. I reassured them and we drove, more cautiously this time, to a location 911 instructed us to wait at to speak with police after they cleared the area. I didn't actually have to do much after that. The police came pretty soon after. A police car met us. I gave a statement telling them everything I observed, and she went to go speak to more officers in more detail than they needed from me. It turns out the reason she got right into a strange pizza guy's car without probing any deeper into my story is because she knew who the man was right away from my description. She had an abusive ex-boyfriend who was apparently psychotic enough that he immediately came to mind after hearing "there's a guy in your bushes." Oh my goodness. She later called us to thank me and insist on leaving a huge tip. I wasn't there when the call came in, so the kid who answered didn't know to refuse to accept the money. But the manager already promised the next time we see her, we can load her up with enough 1 free pie cards to last a lifetime. Easily the scariest thing that has ever happened to me on the job or off. I don't get the chance to tell the story much because I try to avoid sharing it with anyone who could possibly know the girl or know of the event. But I'm still not the same sense. Even though I know he didn't even have anything to do with me directly, this truly shook me to my core. So man in the bushes, let's not meet. Okay, the next one's titled, "He asked for me by my name?" Yeah. Call 911. I've never seen him in my life. Let's read it. I was watching my daughter's kids while she and her husband go out of town. They have a teenage daughter. Let's say her name is Alyssa. At like 3 a.m., I'm woken up by a weird rustling sound and look out the window and see movement. I saw a boy emerge from the bushes on the side of the house. I saw a bike tossed at the lawn that definitely wasn't ours. My first thought was it was a burglar casing houses, but since he looked young and came through on a bike, I figured scaring him straight would be enough for him to decide to head home. Didn't want to ruin a teenager's life by calling the cops straight away. Couldn't be me because I would have dialed so fast. So I went out on the porch, flipped the lights on, and said, "Can I help you?" in my classroom voice. The guy looked surprised, but not nervous. He was wearing a Letterman-style jacket, but once I got a clear view of him in the streetlight, he seemed much older than my granddaughter. Gruff, and more wiry than athletic. I don't even know what that means, but okay. He walked up closer to the house and said, yeah, I'm looking for Alyssa." I gave him a disapproving glare, hoping he realized he came looking for a girl late at night, and a grumpy old person answered, "It's time to split." I'm thinking what must have happened is Alyssa knew her parents were going out of town, and maybe before she knew I'd be staying over, told a secret older boyfriend to come over. It was late, and I was alone with several kids, so I didn't want him coming any closer to the house. I also thought it was weird he came so late and wanted to be sure Alyssa actually wanted to talk to him. So I said, "I'm sorry, who?" And he said, "Alyssa." You know, Alyssa last name? This is her house. I thought he knew her full name. They must be at least friends. I said, "You wait there." He started to walk up and I felt a sick burning in my gut. Instinct kicked in and I yelled, "No, stop. Freeze." Then readjusted and said, "You stay right there. This is private property. Don't take a step closer. Wait there." So I go in and Alyssa is asleep just one room over from where the wrestling first occurred, and I wake her up and say something in the effect of, "I don't know what the big idea was to have friends over this time of night, but you tell them to go home." She has no clue what I'm talking about. Oh my god. I say, "There's a guy outside asking for you." Confused, she gets up and goes to the window. She sees him and goes white as a sheet. "He asked for me?" "Yeah." "By name?" "Yeah." "Call the police. I've never seen him in my life." I just got chills! What the heck? I called 911 immediately, but as I was on the phone with them, Alyssa started tugging at my arm. "He's coming up." I had younger kids in the house to think about. So I kept the door latched and pulled it just open enough for the latch and yelled, "I asked my husband and none of us know any Alyssa last name. Leave my property or I'm calling 911. That was actually smart. He got angry and started yelling for her to come out. Thankfully, the police came pretty quickly, and when he heard the sirens, he grabbed a bike and ran off. I watched where he was running, and he jumped into the passenger side of a car without headlights or front plates and sped off. What the heck? So the bike was just like a decoy to make him seem maybe more friendly or something, or make him seem more like a kid, but there was a car on standby with another person driving? What is this? The police followed in the same direction once I pointed to them, but they didn't get him. They advised us to take all her social media details offline if she was sure she didn't know this person, and said they had a couple of similar reports recently and were looking into it. I got a heavy duty lock, and she slept in my room for the remainder of my visit. That one? Ooh, that one gave me chills. The way they were like, call 911. I've never seen her. I think it might have been my acting that did it for me, but still, scary movie. Okay, I think this is gonna be the last one, and it says, I was on someone's kill list. It also says verified, so like, she legit or whatever. So it starts off by saying, after high school, many years ago, I was in a bad place. My guardian had kicked me out after graduation. She didn't help me find a place to stay, so I lived in my car for a couple of months. I met some heavy metal dudes at work one day. I had seen them around town, and all my other friends knew who they were. We became friends over a couple months, and they offered for me to move in with them. I agreed. Looking back now, I wish I had just stayed in my car. My two main roommates were brothers named Andrew and Seth. Now we're dropping names. Okay. They were in a band. They also believed in the occult or anything of that sort. I never really believed in that stuff, but I'm not one to tell someone what they should believe in. They had let me live with them rent-free for several months, so who was I to complain? Being the only girl in a house full of young men, I was always looking over my shoulder. You never know who you can trust. Turns out, I was right to worry. Over time, their friends started to stay with us for longer periods of time, sometimes weeks. Their friends were another group of brothers that they had gone to school with. There were 5 brothers in total, but only 2 stayed with us consistently. The younger brother, Mark, was very polite. He cleaned up after himself and always helped with the household chores. The older brother, Adam, had a laundry list of mental problems. He had apparently done some bad drugs back in the day, and it had developed into what seemed like psychosis of a religious sort. He had done time in prison for assaulting a woman with a Bible. Okay. He would often look you in the eyes and tell you he could see how you would die. Huh? Once he told me that I was possessed by a demon and I needed my soul cleansed. Everyone in the house knew he had these problems, but he was their friend. They helped him through the hard times and gave him a place to stay. Otherwise, he would be on the streets. I always was on guard around him after the things he told me. No one else seemed to be as concerned as I was. They should have been. One day, I was sleeping and my phone rang. It was my boss. He asked if I could come into work an hour early. Don't call me. Don't call. The answer is always going to be no. It was only 12 p.m. I was broke and had nothing better to do. So I said yeah. I got up and began getting ready to leave. I walked out into the living room to see Mark and Andrew sitting on the couch, while Adam sat on the floor by the TV. He was watching scripture videos on YouTube. Some real end of days type stuff. This was fairly common, so I went about my business. I said goodbye and left for work. My shift at work was almost complete when the phone rang. My boss answered, handed the phone to me, and said, "For you." I was just a cashier, so I assumed it was a friend that couldn't reach me on my phone. I answered the phone and heard a man's voice that I didn't recognize. "Hi, this is Detective Williams. Something happened at your apartment today and we need you to come to the station to talk about it." I left work immediately. I had assumed one of the brothers had been arrested for drug dealing or something. I was very wrong. I got to the station and was buzzed in. An officer escorted me to a small, cold room with a camera. He gave me a bottle of water and left me by myself for about 30 minutes. My mind was racing, thinking about what could have happened. He came back in and informed me that Adam had stabbed and killed Andrew at around 1 p.m. I was shocked. I had just left the house an hour before it happened and everything seemed fine. I asked if there was a fight. The detective informed me that there hadn't been a fight and it seemed to have happened out of nowhere. I gave my statement to the police and left with nowhere to go, still in shock and confused out of my mind. Our apartment was a crime scene, so I went to another friend's house to watch the news report since the police wouldn't give me any information on the case. Over the next couple of days, the information began to be released. Adam hadn't just stabbed Andrew once, not twice, but he stabbed him over and over and nearly decapitated him. After the unaliving, he ran down the road, still holding the murder weapon. He called 911 and informed them what he had done. I watched the news report in horror. We had known he was unstable, but this? He had fully confessed to the brutal murder and provided police with his notebooks. He had apparently been planning the murder of all his brothers, my roommates, and me. He thought we were possessed by demons and this was the only way to free us. Luckily, none of his other intended victims were there that day. Mark unfortunately witnessed the murder, but he luckily escaped. If I hadn't gotten that call from my boss, I wouldn't be alive today. So, to the man who brutally murdered my friends and wanted to murder me, let's not ever meet again. Okay, note to self, when your boss asks you to come in early for work, say yes. Always say yes. Lesson learned. Okay, let's all agree that this thread is absolutely insane. I don't even. Anyway, thank you guys for being here. I love you, and I will see all of you in my next one. Bye.